You know you're watching Made in Abyss when not even 30 seconds in, like 20 seconds in, you have one of the most dark scenes, at least so far for the anime, actually appear for Voiko, our new character that was introduced for this episode. It's really just, we're definitely just diving headfirst into the abyss with season 2 of Made in Abyss. So let's talk about it. Now, for those that are unaware, because I know there's definitely going to be some of you out there that have probably only seen season 1 of Made in Abyss and have no idea probably what's fully going on with this episode, and I want to key you in. There was a movie that released about over a year ago for Made in Abyss, and you have to watch that movie. You can find it, and you have to watch that movie to be able to understand what's going on in season 2. And the reason why that was made into a movie is because just the content of that movie was just, I want to just give one example, okay? And it'll explain enough of why it had to be turned into a movie because of how just dark the representation of that part of the story is. You have a character, good man by the way, that puts literally kids into juice boxes. Like, compresses them into literal juice boxes. Yeah, that's as far as I want to go with that. So what I'm trying to say is that, Made in Abyss is messed up. It's a really messed up show, and the movie, it made sense to make a movie on it for a few reasons. Not just because of, let's say, censorship, but because the arc is relatively short, and it would kind of clash with the tone of what Season 2 would be about. For instance, everything that's going on within, the first episode that came out, but also what the remaining of the season will be, so it kind of clashes with that, so they definitely need to, probably figure out how to handle it. Movies are obviously popular for anime. I mean, you have stuff like, Demon Slayer, and so because of that, people know, or at least people over in Japan know, that anime movies sell well. So it was the perfect opportunity to make a Made in Abyss movie. So just once again, I want to reiterate before I go any further, if you have not watched the Made in Abyss movie, basically the third movie, because the first two movies is just a recap of the first season, so don't worry about that. But if you want to actually watch season 2, you have to see the movie. If you don't, you're not gonna know what's going on. So anyways, let's talk about episode 1 of season 2. So we get introduced to a bunch of new characters, a lot of lore, a lot of world building, a lot of mystery, a lot of questions, and it makes you wonder what's really going on. And here's the thing, it's very clear. It basically tells you right in the middle of the episode that the new characters that we saw introduced for the first half of the episode, they were in a time period way before Rico and Reg and all of them went down into the abyss. Before they did their cave dive and started to explore what we saw throughout season 1, the group of characters we see in the first half of season 2, they're definitely in like a time period so well way before season 1 started. And it makes you wonder how long ago, because when you look at just the abyss, the entrance of the abyss that they show, it looks more uninhabited. For instance, you have tribal people around the entrance of the abyss. You have it to where there is no civilization, really, because when we start season 1 of Main Abyss, like if you go back, you will see a bunch of buildings and culture and civilization just all around the entirety of the entrance of the abyss. So it kind of proves that, there definitely had to be a lot of time, at least 100 years before something like that was even established. But if you look deeper at, let's say, what we saw in this episode, season 2's first episode, and then let's say you go back to the first season, you'll notice the overall whole of the abyss is a lot bigger in the beginning of season 1. So it lets you know that something's going on there, that the abyss's entrance is widening and getting a lot bigger as time goes on. So that is something to really factor in and think about when you saw the episode. Now, there's a few other things to talk about. For one, we have to mention the fact that you had this guy that was apparently from the abyss. He was on this ship, he could barely speak, and he starts talking about how, it's darkness, the golden city, everything about it. He was just, he was really, he was in despair. He was scared. And when you think about what we know of the abyss so far, like everything we know from the story, you can't really come back up. Like, if you go too far down, especially to where the Golden City apparently is, you can't come back up from that. There is no way to get back up. But somehow, this individual was able to get back up. So it makes you wonder, how? Is he lying? Which I doubt, because of how scared he was, and he literally died just from despair itself. Or there's something else he found. It makes you wonder. The Abyss is a very mysterious place. There's a lot of mysteries and things that we don't really understand, even in the previous layers. So because of that, it could be anything that he might have discovered. But that is food for thought to think about because of that little dialogue we got. Now, let's talk about what is actually happening. So, the introduction of the characters that we saw, their main purpose, at least for now that you can get, is that we could see that there has been so many people that have quested to the Abyss to be able to figure out what is at the bottom, to go on an adventure, to explore it, and seek the unknown. And so, just as how we follow Rico and Reg and Nanachi, you have other characters that have come before, and they have journeyed into the Abyss. And I think that's another good example of this is the Sea of Corpses that we saw in the second half of the episode. As they were descending down very far deep into the Abyss, you saw these sea of bones or corpses, which basically represented so many countless others and other things that have tried to descend, but obviously couldn't. And I think that just is a really good representation that just as how the Abyss could giveth, it can taketh away. And I always love the nature of that, especially for just Lovecraftian stories, because if you were unaware, I think many people kind of keyed in on this, but Made in Abyss is a Lovecraftian story. It is 100% Lovecraftian inspired. I mean, you could just see it because, I mean, for one, the Abyss. Literally, the entirety of the whole is called the Abyss, and if you know anything about Lovecraftian mythos and all that, you know the Abyss is a big thing about Cthulhu and all that, or just the darkness, the unknown, cosmic horrors, etc. So that's something that you can get from just the overall theme of Made in Abyss. And so it definitely has a lot of, dark tones to it, and I've always been fascinated by the way Made in Abyss incorporates all these darker elements within its story. I mean, for one, you can clearly see that there is just some messed up stuff that probably is deep down within the Abyss. From everything we've seen from Season 1, what we've seen from the movie, and now that we're probably going to see from Season 2, there's going to be some darkness that is just going to be, whoa, like, it's going to blow you away. Which, let's talk about that. So, some of the new characters that were introduced, one of the characters, which you could kind of say is the leader, he is voiced by Sanji. I don't know if you know this, but the leader character, he is voiced by Sanji, and you see him eating crickets, you see him just eating random things throughout the journey in this episode, and it's just very amusing, because if you know anything about Sanji from One Piece, he's a chef, and so seeing this man just randomly grab crickets and put them in his mouth, and he's eating them, and I was like, oh my goodness, Sanji, your overall palate has definitely dwindled quite a bit, but yeah, it's entertaining, honestly, just, seeing the little things, foreshadowing and all that. It's amusing. That's exactly what it is. But let's talk about the second half. So the second half of the episode, when it starts, we get a OST, like soundtrack basically, and I have to say, if there's one thing that's really always drawn me into Made in Abyss and why I love it so much, and I think why many people love the show, is not just because of the darker story, but I think it's because of the music. Kevin that works on the OST for Made in Abyss and also worked on Zenkyo no Terror long time ago, I think really did a good job with the music for the show. It really fits the tone and the vibe of what the show is, because when you see the characters, they kind of journey in onto the island and they're about to enter into the Abyss, you hear this very darker, depressing music start to play at the start of it. It sounds triumphant. It sounds like, it's a great tone, like, they're about to discover a world of greatness, but the song's lyrics tell such a darker story, and because of that, I love how the overall music clashes and fits so perfectly into the events that's going on throughout the episode. I love the music of Made in Abyss. It is definitely like a soundtrack I've had on repeat for years now, ever since I saw the first season. It's that good. And so when I look at this episode, I'm just like, I'm glad to have it back, because I'm going to probably get more soundtracks for Made in Abyss. So yeah. Overall, though, if you have yet to watch Season 2, I highly recommend it. It's a good start, and we're just getting into the depths of what this series has to offer, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see certain things animated, and it's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see the community's reaction as well. But I guess I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe and leave a like. It does help me out a lot if you leave me a like, because it allows, obviously, the algorithm to pick up more of my videos and more recommendations to come out, etc. So if you do want to help me out, please leave me a like. But with that, guys, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.